thing you will notice with Uber more than Lyft, when they are receiving negative headlines in the media, right? They got hammered over this whole autonomous vehicle or self-driving unit being in the negative $2.5 billion, right? That really humiliated them and made them look silly in the media, right? And it also is a big thing for investors. Like, are you gearing up for that? That was your future promise, right? So when there's uncertainty on AV, what Uber typically does is they do then, just like politicians do, the counter spin, right? They start loading up and say, hey, our AV unit, our AV direction is healthy, etc., etc. We are going to win this battle here on Prop 22. We are going to bring this Prop 22 beyond California, which we'll talk about, which is extremely dangerous for other drivers around the various states. And that's why other drivers really need to help and get us a victory or no on Proposition 22, right? Don't just let Californians fight for this, but help us fight through Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Push that no on Prop 22 vote, because their intentions are very clear. They want to push Prop 22 beyond California, bring those same 30 cents per mile rate to you, bring those same sort of guarantees, which will be way less in other states. In California, it's rather high, but it works out to $5.65 per mile guarantee. That's not money. You're moving backwards. So they're trying to get that victory here in California so that they can push the agenda in Texas, in Florida, in New York, and then make it very clear. So we need outside drivers to fight with us and push no on 22. This will affect you in the future. So support us here in California with your social media presence so we can get victories for you down the line. Now, the headline, Uber still sees micro-mobility and AVs, autonomous vehicles, in its future and could push Prop 22 beyond California. And this to me is one of the most trusted sources, TechCrunch. That's why I'll always highlight them if they come up with Uber or Lyft news. Uber made headlines earlier this year when it offloaded Jump, the shared bike and scooter unit that once appeared to be a critical piece of its transportation. And remember with Jump, how they were just trashing thousands and thousands of bikes instead of donating them, right? They were just literally pissing millions and millions of dollars by putting these brand new bikes in the dumpster and just crushing them into metal. It was really sad. I reported on it. Here they bring it up again. Despite that move, Uber still sees micromobility as really important to the company, according to Uber Director of Policy, Cities and Transportation, Shin Pei-Tsai, who joined TechCrunch on the virtual stage of TC Sessions Mobility 2020. It was really hard to let go of Jump, but micromobility is a business where on-the-ground operations are so important. Tsai said they are vital to the success of the operations. They're vital to the business being able to provide the service to as many people as possible. And scaling it is challenging for every micromobility operator. The current state of policies around micromobility is a very challenged environment, I would say, where cities are really trying to get a handle on how best to manage operators and how best to manage the public right of way. Even though Uber offloaded Jump to Lime, Uber is still partnering with other micromobility operators through the world. Part of that, Tsai says, means Uber can offer micromobility in more cities. Tsai also weighed Uber's stance on transit, autonomous vehicles, and micromobility, as well as its role in Prop 22, the gig workers ballot measure that is up for vote in November in California, where Uber stands on AVs. This is an important one for drivers. Uber has been working on autonomous vehicles for the last 5 years or so. Last month, The Information published a report saying Uber is still nowhere close to achieving its AV ambitions, but Tsai said autonomous vehicles are still on the roadmap for Uber. Obviously, they had to push back and try and reassure the investors that, hey, don't worry, we have this under control. I think the point here is like there's a transition, right? Tsai said it has to be shared, it has to be electric, and when we're going to get to autonomous. And then we're going to get to autonomous, and that's still in the future of the business. But frankly, I think as a community of transportation folks, we're still sorting out what it means to have multimodal shared transportation system, and then what does it mean to really invest in the electrification aspect. And by the way, the articles that were really hurting Uber is, Amazon announcing Zoosk, which is making way more headlines than Uber is, and then Google Waymo are far ahead of the Uber game. So this is really trying to put a counter spin to that and playing catch up. Tsai pointed to how Uber recently committed to becoming a zero emission platform by 2040. Part of that involves incentivizing drivers to transition to electric vehicles. So we want to increase access to transportation while we're driving down carbon, Tsai said. So we felt it was really important to do that. And I think ultimately autonomous vehicles will have a role to play for high volume routes for improving safety. But I think at this stage in the game, it's like heads down. Let's focus on getting it right. Let's focus on the cities that we have pilots in, and let's just really get it right before we make additional commitments. And by the way, getting it right, they've learned their lesson there in Arizona. Remember, one fatality because of their AVs for starting too early, for bypassing the laws, and they paid a dear price on that, and it really hurt them in the media. So pushing Proposition 22, autonomous vehicles and Uber's role in commercializing the tech is a distant term issue. Proposition 22, which Uber is backing, could change the landscape, or more precisely, protect the status quo in the near term. Proposition 22 aims to keep gig workers classified as independent contractors. The measure, if passed, would make drivers and delivery workers for said companies exempt from a new state law that classifies them as W-2 employees. If passed, app-based transportation and delivery workers would be entitled to things like minimum compensation and healthcare subsidies based on engaged driving time. Uber, Lyft, Instacart, and DoorDash have collectively contributed $184 million to the Yes on 22 campaign. Those contributions have been monetary, non-monetary, and have come in form of loans. In September, the four companies each committed another $17.5 million to Yes on Prop 22 in monetary contributions. So they're over $200 million right now, right? Which they could have put into tons of other uses, right? As of August 24, the Yes on 22 campaign had contributed just north of $110 million, while the No on 22 campaign had put in $4.6 million into its efforts. The latest influx of cash brings Yes on 22's total contributions to more than $180 million. In fact, it's already $200 million now. Of all the measures on this November's ballot, Yes on Prop 22 has received the most contributions. Tsai said Prop 22 is important to Uber because of what it has found from studies and surveys. In those cities surveyed, drivers said they value flexibility above everything else. And I think that flexibility ends up being something that's worth protecting, but it isn't perfect, So I'll say to you here that even under No on 22, you have all the flexibility in the world. You'll be able to drive when you want, with whom you want. AB5 protects it. So that, again, is a big fat lie and trying to distort the truth in the media. We should be supporting workers for more than the existing system enables currently. And so this is a sort of a middle way of protecting that flexibility, but also offering some benefits. Some benefits, there's no benefits in there unless you drive around the clock, right? Uber also doesn't see a way to offer flexibility to drivers while also employing them. I think it would be really challenging. Tsai said about providing flexibility to drivers as employees. We would have to start to ensure that there's coverage to ensure that there's the necessary number of drivers to meet demand. That would be this forecasting that needs to happen. We would only be able to offer a certain number of jobs to meet that demand because people will be working in set amounts of time. I think there would be quite a fewer work opportunities, especially the ones that people really have said they like. Fear marketing, false advertising, right? Just putting the living fear into drivers with that type of verbiage. It's worth noting, however, that Uber's adamancy around keeping drivers classified as independent contractors also stems from the fact that it will be costly to classify drivers as employees. At one point, Uber threatened to leave California in response to a preliminary injunction that seeks to force both Uber and Lyft to reclassify their drivers as employees. In an August court hearing, Uber and Lyft maintained that an injunction would require them to restructure their business in such a material way that it would prevent them from being able to employ many drivers on either a full-time or part-time basis. Uber and Lyft's argument effectively is that they're classifying drivers as employees would result in job loss. In the event Prop 22 passes, we can likely expect Uber to pursue similar legislation in other states. If they get away with it here, they're going to duplicate the model which favors them in other states. If the principles are there, then yeah, there's a possibility of it going to other states, as I said. So just hear that, right? And other drivers around the state should be alarmed by this, because they're coming your way with those 30 cents per mile rates. Just say no, help us push no on Prop 22. Get the videos circulated, tweet it, retweet it. At this point, as an influencer, at the end of the video, I always give my sponsors a shout out. So Cova, there will be many other sponsors this month coming on board. I signed many agreements with new sponsors, only products and services I believe in, right? But Cova has this amazing gig protection plan. You can see all these gig companies that they have in their model. They protect these delivery people and drivers, starting at $7 per month. If you find yourself in the hospital because of an accident, they jump in, cover 80% of your lost earnings. If your car is in the workshop, you can't drive it, your office is out of commission, they jump in, pay up to 80% of your lost earnings. If you get deactivated, which is very, very common, you think it might never happen to you, but even happened to me. You got to go out and let their legal arm send off the paperwork to legally protect you, right? So check it out, free 1 month below from the Rideshare Professor. I'll also leave you the link to this great article here beneath the video in case you want to read it. But stay safe out there, sanitize your cars. I wouldn't stress out about the AVs yet. Some people get a little bit paranoid and say, oh my God, AVs are coming. It's still a far way off. They're just trying to cozy up to the investors and Wall Street, try to keep their stock safe and say, hey, we're on it, right? After being hammered negatively in the media. Have a great day.